A glamorous Miami real estate influencer busted for buying a Bentley cosmetic surgery with 381,000 in COVID relief funds, according to the feds. So glamorous Miami real estate broker is facing federal fraud raps after authorities said she used COVID-19 relief funds on a new Bentley, cosmetic procedures, and a luxury apartment. Daniela Rendon, 31, received $381,000 through the Small Business Administration and Paycheck Protection Program, or the PP loan, according to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. But instead of using the government cash to keep legitimate employees afloat amid the pandemic, Rendon allegedly dispersed the fake payroll funds to friends and family for personal gain. Which here's the thing, right? What I don't understand about all these people that are doing these types of like scams is like, hey, do you really think that you're going to get away with stealing from the government, right? Like, just think about that for a second. Do you think that you're actually going to get away as an everyday person that you are going to be able to steal from the government? Even though it's not the government's money, you're going to steal from the government. Like, you're not going to get away with it. So instead of using the government cash to keep blah 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 blah, yeah, no, no. This is her. I'm guessing she probably got like surgery on her nose, probably her lips or whatever, maybe forehead, this whole area. Let's see. Rendon blew much of the windfall to lease a 2021 Bentley Bentayga. Like, lease. By the way, for those that don't know, leasing a car is quite literally the most expensive way to drive around in a car. It is the most expensive method of doing that. And the only time where at least might make sense if you're able to completely write off the vehicle 100% in terms of the cost of it, which it's very unlikely that you would be able to do it, right? So, for example, let's say that you are someone who is selling a product, right? And you use your social media channels to market to an audience to sell that product. If you were to buy a car that would get attention, that would also create content with the car, then you could potentially write off the full amount of the lease of a car for that whole situation. So, like an example of this, like a really good example of this, where it's actually done correctly in terms of like leasing a car, where it actually makes financial sense to do that. Like the only time for that to actually make sense is a YouTuber and a YouTube channel called Daily Driven Exotics, or DDE, Damon Fryer, aka. The reason why it worked perfectly in that situation, his whole channel is basically like a lifestyle brand surrounded about him driving, buying, swapping out supercars and daily driving exotics. Also, in his specific situation, he's Canadian, and to get a full, basically full coverage of his vehicles, of every single one of his vehicles, it has to be through a lease, according to, I guess, the Canadian insurance situation. So for him to have full coverage on all of his vehicles, which are all super expensive, he has to lease all of these vehicles. That's the only time where it actually makes sense because he gets full coverage of his vehicles, and also he can write off the full amount of those vehicles because it's a business expense. He could also write off, like what he spends on the wheels, what he does to like design the cars, whatever, with his branding, all this sort of stuff, and he markets his own products or sponsored like sponsors that like pay him a big amount of money as well. He just could write off basically all of the expenses regarding the car, aka the lease. So that's really the only specific situation where leasing a car would make sense. I mean, technically, you could have like just like a business where you're literally using that vehicle as well to operate your business, whatever it is. Maybe like a big rig or something like that, and you're like a driver, like an independent contractor, and you're using your own vehicle. Maybe that could work out too, because you're literally using the vehicle to work. But it's just very rare. Like for the majority of people, it just doesn't make any sense. So she rented a posh Biscayne Bay apartment and pay for cosmetic work. Renting, also pointless to do as well for a lot of people. Now, there's nothing wrong necessarily with renting, but rent will always go up, like always. And the whole cosmetic work thing, like, unless you're a chick who's like doing something in terms of like your own content and you're making money from that content, I don't really understand the whole purpose of cosmetic work, personally. She also routed some of the taxpayer monies to refurbish a pair of designer shoes. Because, shoes are just that important. Rendon now faces 7 counts of wire fraud and money laundering raps that could land her in prison for up to 20 years. So imagine this. Another way to put this into perspective. Say you were going to get 20 years in prison, potentially, to get a new pair of marshmallows. Like, put it into like that viewpoint, because she potentially got that work done as well. Would you be willing to serve 20 years in prison just because you wanted to have bigger marshmallows on your chest? Like, I don't know. To me, it just seems kind of crazy. Like, what people are willing to do for technically not that much money is insane to me. Like, yes, 300 and something thousand dollars is a good amount of money, but in the grand scheme of things, like I've seen like these like PPP loans on these like different news websites where some of these scams were like 10 million for a PPP loan, right? And she's in trouble for like 365,000. It's like, really? So Rendon's social media pages, most of which were set to private after her arrest, feature her cavorting in a variety of high-end settings in Miami and beyond. Which, by the way, if you're a scammer, maybe you shouldn't flaunt that you are living the high life when you're not making the money legitimately at all. So prosecutors argued at her arraignment last week that she was a flight risk to her native Colombia, a claim her attorney denied. And a judge set her bond at $150,000, and the mother of three will now fight the charges against her. You're a mom? Like, she's a mom and she did this. Like, come on. Now you just put, like, so much risk on your kids by doing something so stupid like this. So, as part of the scheme, Rendon allegedly falsified documents related to her real estate business in order to qualify for the PPP money, including her annual revenue and number of employees. Like, here's the thing, if you own like a business of whatever, don't commit fraud. Like, just don't be a scumbag. Like, at the very minimum, don't be a scumbag. I don't know. This is so crazy. Wow, there's a lot. There's so many comments on this one. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see. So when those COVID funds were announced, my mind went to Jack Nicholson as the Joker raining cash onto the people of Gotham. When the government does welfare, there is always a hidden motive. Usually it's to buy votes or reinforce party loyalty. I wonder if this chick has senators and reps as clients for her side business. Influencer, so she was probably bright enough to post images of all this stuff in Insta Talk. Do they now offer advanced degrees in internet influencer? She looks too much like a poseur, whatever that is. I know this is trite, but I hope she rots in hell. Well, that's some pretty big statements. The complete opposite of a professional criminal who keeps quiet and takes little bites out of the apple when no one notices. Glad they caught her, but who gets a luxury apartment on 350K? Like, see, this is the thing. Like, this is what's so crazy about this. Like, she committed fraud for only $350,000 so she could rent a lifestyle. Rent a lifestyle. Which to me is just like crazy, right? Like, you're not even buying a full on lifestyle at that point. You're pretending at that point. And like again, I see like some of these scammers on these news websites where they scam like 10, 20 million dollars. They bought this lifestyle. Obviously, it's all fraud, but they bought it. She couldn't even commit fraud at a decent enough scale, so she had to rent it. She had to rent with fraud. That's what's so crazy. She'd be in her 50s when she gets out if convicted. I think the saddest thing about this is that she has 3 kids, right? What's going to happen with those kids? Like, she pretty much screwed over her kids by doing this. Good they straightened that out in the article because you can't buy a Bentley, cosmetic surgery, and an upscale apartment for 301K. Lease, rent, okay, buy, no. Except for the surgery. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, she pretty much probably bought the surgery and then rented every single other aspect of her life, which to me just seems crazy. Because that's basically just like having like 381,000 whatever in cash and just lighting it on fire. To me, that is just so like annoying for me to see. Like, of course, the whole fraud thing's pretty annoying as well, pretty messed up. But like, just seeing someone be so irresponsible with the cash that they have annoys me. So you're gonna lease a car, you're going to rent a super expensive apartment, you're gonna pay a crazy amount on cosmetic surgery, like just because you want to seem like you're doing better than you actually are. Which, by the way, to me, if you're a real estate broker or a real estate agent in Miami and you're somewhat good at your job, you should be clearing over like 200K a year minimum if you're good at your job. So I don't understand why she would even commit this fraud. At least she didn't waste the money. Well, she definitely did. Probably will pay a small fine and get probation. Actually, I don't think this is going to be the case. I think she's actually going to serve time because, due to the punishments of what other individuals who committed this exact same type of scam, fraud, they got years in prison. Like, they literally got years in prison. Let's see. So tired of seeing these scammers take money that should have gone to people who really needed it. How many people were denied when she spent the money on personal luxuries and cosmetic surgeries? These influencers are a menace. Here's the thing, I agree. But it's also even crazier when you like take a even further step back. All of this money is fake. That's what's so messed up about this. Like, if you were to really think about it, every single dollar that is in existence is basically fake money. The money in your bank is fake money. Like it doesn't actually exist. That's what's so messed up. Like the whole Federal Reserve thing, it just annoys the crap out of me because imagine no matter how hard you work, you know that your government is basically working 100% against you, like on every front. Let's see. And just how many did the same that we don't know about? A lot of people did. Wow, stupid move. Social media and showing off her money will land her in jail. Like again, like this is one of those things that I really don't understand, right? If you're someone who's going to go down the path of scamming the government out of money, what makes you think that it's a bright idea to just post all of your expensive lifestyle things when you know you committed fraud? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. What a low life. Okay. Feel free to give your thoughts on this. I just thought this was kind of interesting because it's like, imagine you're a mom of three kids or a parent of three kids, and you go and commit a massive crime that could land you in 20 years in prison for only 360 something thousand dollars. Like, you didn't even do it for a mill. Like, now you shouldn't do it at all, but I'm just saying, like, she didn't even do it for seven figures. She didn't even do it for eight figures. Like, you just did it for 300 something thousand dollars. This is crazy to me.